Sankritam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Gaganata Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Nita Shivishakam Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Knowledge is crucial. We have to have knowledge. Everyone knows when parents have children, they know they have to start teaching their children as soon as they can understand anything, which as maybe after, I don't know, a month or two, maybe I didn't have any babies in this life, so I don't know how soon little kids can learn. But as soon as they can learn something, the parents start teaching them. No, it's mostly no. No, don't do this. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. Because the children have to learn how dangerous the world is. And they have to learn that from mostly what they learn is no, 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 no. But it's kind of like that in Krishna consciousness too. When you start coming to the temple, there's a lot of no, no, no's. And there's a lot of yes, yes, yes too. Yes, chant Hare Krishna. Yes, come to the morning program. Yes, wash the pots. Yes, do this. I mean, there's always yes, and the parents are always encouraging and rewarding the children when they do something good too. It's not only no, 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 but the warnings, especially in the beginning of everything. If you want to learn to play the piano, the teacher is like, no, not like that. No, not like that. No, not like that. That they always encourage what they do well too. So, but everyone knows you need knowledge. Whatever you want to do in life, you need knowledge. You have to learn from somebody who knows. You learn by practicing. One interesting thing about practicing, if you've ever practiced, say, a musical instrument, I have a little experience with guitar when I was younger, and other things too. You see it in anything, but you practice doing something for a while, and at first your fingers are so clumsy and you can barely do it. And then you practice and for a while, and then you're making a little bit of progress, a little bit of improvement day by day, and then oftentimes you find that all of a sudden one day you've made a big improvement. You don't know how. You've been practicing whatever it is, sports or music or some intellectual discipline, and you go from making very slow progress and then one day all of a sudden you've made a lot of progress and you're surprised. You're like, boy, I couldn't do that yesterday. How do I do it today? But it's one interesting thing about the training in anything. And so anyway, we're making every day, every minute, every day, we're gradually progressively becoming purified by chanting our basic services in Krishna consciousness, but and Krishna gives us some leaps and bounds sometimes, some realization, intense realization about something, like the light goes on, and all of a sudden you can understand something or do something that you couldn't do just the day before.
Eureka.
What?
Eureka.
What?
Eureka.
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 You know where that comes from? You know,
Is a Greek word?
yeah, the Greek word is, the way I heard the story is Archimedes.
Yeah.
You know that story. And he was in the bathtub and he saw some weights and how the water would go up to a certain level depending on how much was. And he jumped out of the water and ran down the street saying, Eureka, I have seen it. I've discovered a law of nature. And when a scientist or something discovers the law of nature, he gets it named after himself, like Newton's laws of gravity, or whose laws of physics, the first three laws, the object at rest tends to stay at somebody's laws of motion.
Newton's.
And it's Newton.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, this is my law. I made the law. You didn't really make the law. You just sort of had a little realization of it by the grace of God, because you wanted it, you studied it, so you got a little bit of understanding. What they say, we name it after him.
You're good in science, bro.
I know a little bit, not much. I did go to school for a few years. Anyway, yeah, so they
knowledge practicing.
Yeah, knowledge practicing, and yeah, so we get Krishna definitely gives us realization. This isn't some law of some physics study or some study of geology or whatever it is, or playing the piano or playing cricket, how to hit the ball. This is the ultimate science of going back home, back to God. And Krishna consciousness is not only the ultimate science, but it's the ultimate art. It's the ultimate love. It's the ultimate everything, all at the same time. And is infinite. Is an artist. It may have some talent, and in the beginning there can do something kind of nice, and as time goes on, they can progress more and more. And you see their art like 20 years later or 50 years later, you see how they've developed in their art, whatever it is, or their sport. But in Krishna consciousness, the art of Krishna consciousness is infinite, because Krishna is infinite. Understanding of Krishna is infinite, is unlimitedly deep. Any verse in the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, like this one here, Shotavyadini Rajendra Santi Sahasrasha Pashatam Atmatattvam Griheshu Grihamedinam. Those who are materially engrossed, Grihamedi, being blind to knowledge of the ultimate truth, have many subjects for hearing in human society, O Emperor. But you can read that verse, and the principle is pretty simple. Okay, I read the verse, I can understand that. But Prabhupada said, but each verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam is unlimitedly deep. Each verse is Krishna. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna. Krishna is there in each word, in each letter. Like Lord Chaitanya, he taught his students grammar. He taught every letter in relationship to Krishna. Every letter, every syllable, every word in relationship to Krishna. Everything does have relationship to Krishna. So particularly for the Shastras or the Maha Mantra or worshiping the deities, everything related to Krishna is infinitely deep. And so it seems anybody can read this verse, anybody with some intelligence can read this verse and they say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I get it. I've read the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita, and the things are pretty easy to understand, not so difficult. Of course, they are difficult. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, I am the source of everything. I'm present in everything, but I'm not in them. That's like what's going on there. It's not like everything is immediately easy to understand, but many of the things that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita are not hard to understand. But you can go on reading the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, your whole life, and never come to the bottom of them. They're infinitely, every word, every syllable, every verse is infinitely deep. And as Prabhupada said, you can talk on one verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam for 3 months. We're just picking a number at random. Why not 5 months? Okay, 5 months you can talk. Why not a year? Yeah, a year? Okay.
Bhakti Thakur did it.
Yeah.
First verse of Bhagavatam for 1 month.
And they might say, okay, well, I can see that with the first verse. It's a lot in the first verse. But what about another verse? It's not so-called packed with obvious meaning as the first verse is. But yes, any verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam is infinitely deep. Every verse is Krishna. So I saw one argument on Facebook from an atheist scientist, some kind of atheist, very learned fellow. You can tell that he's been to college, some PhD or something in this or that philosophy, and he's like, okay, it says in the Bible, God created the universe, or God created the earth, and it's like one of the first or second verses in the Bible, and he's like mocking it. He said, "Oh, well, that's a pretty good story of creation. God created it. It doesn't. It's like, what is he? Yeah, okay, you got this God, and he created it. It doesn't really tell you anything in his idea. Okay, that doesn't tell you anything. I created it. Okay." Or Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, these 8 comprise the material energy, the material elements. And you might say, okay, well, I learned in my chemistry class that there's a periodic table with 100 and something elements, and each element can, there's all kinds of depths and books and PhD theses written about 1 million different aspects of the material energy. And Bhagavad Gita is like, okay, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, done. Okay, I did it. And it's like, so what is this? This is like children's stuff, they think. Or I created the universe, bam, I created it. Okay, well, that doesn't tell me anything. But if Krishna wanted to, Krishna doesn't have to tell us everything. If he wanted to, he could go into infinite depth about Earth, what is the various elements of Earth and the chemical structure, atomic structure, or subatomic structure of Earth or water, fire. You could go into infinite depth and detail about any aspect, and you could you could never understand it. But Krishna is like, well, you don't need that. I'll just tell you, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. You can't even study. You study the mind a little bit, but you don't, and you try to study intelligence a little bit, and you try to study psychology a little bit, false ego, mental activities. You try to study those. Can't hardly do that at all. But you do try to study the brain. You try to go into all the synapses and everything, and try to figure out what you can't get. You haven't gotten hardly anywhere in that. And earth, water, fire, air, and ether, you've studied them a little bit, you've made some progress, but it's not, I could go into infinite detail if I wanted to. If you really wanted me to, I could do it, but you don't need it. All you need to know is that these are the material elements. You're stuck in the material world, and because of being stuck in this material world, you're suffering and you're lamenting. The main point of this verse is that everyone in the material world is suffering and lamenting because they don't know that the spirit soul is eternal, whereas the body is perishable. So they're not overwhelmed by lamentation. And let's say Prabhupada gives one really nice example. The Shastras give one nice example. If you go into a dark room and you see a coil of something on the floor and you think it's a snake, so you're afraid. But if somebody's with you who knows that it's a rope coiled up on the floor, and he tells you, "Oh, no, I know, I've been here before. That's not a snake. That's a rope." So as soon as you know that it's a rope and not a snake, then you're not you're not afraid anymore. You don't have to be afraid of a rope. So knowledge is. So without knowledge, the person is in fear. But without knowledge of Krishna, without knowledge of the material and spiritual nature, the difference between the soul and the body, how I'm not the body, I'm pure spirit soul. We don't have to be afraid of the material world. It's not that we don't try to avoid danger. We lock the doors, at least at night, and we try to be careful when we drive on the road, and we try to eat properly, do things to keep the body safe. So we don't, not like we look for danger or aren't careful in the material world, but we know that, well, if I do get in a car crash and I do get severely injured or leave my body, if the body does get severely injured or I leave it, I'm not the body. Even if I get severely injured, I can still chant Hare Krishna. Even if I can't talk, I can look at a picture of Krishna or think about Krishna. And if I leave the body, I'll get another chance in my next life to practice Krishna consciousness. Or maybe Krishna will come, or Prabhupada will come, my spiritual master will come on my deathbed and take me back home, back to Godhead. So I'm not afraid. I'm not happy that I'm in a wheelchair now or in the hospital for a year. I'm not happy about it. It is painful, but I don't have to lament. Without knowledge, yeah. So knowledge is crucial, and knowledge is not difficult to get if you hear it from the proper person. The proper person is the person who has heard it in disciplic succession directly from his spiritual master and ultimately from Krishna. Krishna is the source of all knowledge. So if we get knowledge from the proper person in disciplic succession, then the statement, maybe you know the verse, the person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. Anyway, everything doesn't mean that you know how many grains of sand there are on the beach, but everything means you know the nature of the material and the spiritual world. You know Krishna, and Krishna is everything. If you know Krishna, then in that sense, you know everything. You know everything that Krishna wants you to know or needs you to know. Especially for preaching, we have to be learned and intelligent. You don't have to be so learned and intelligent for preaching. You know, a little child can preach if he has faith in Guru and Krishna. A little child can preach. Prabhupada always talked about Saraswati when she was a little girl. He'd tell people about, like guests. He'd say, you know, you should go up to people and say, you know, Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's like 3 or 4 years old, or something like that. But she knew, she had faith in Prabhupada. She had faith in her mother and father, who were devotees. And
you know what happened to her?
When she grew up, I don't know. Her mother was Mother Malati, right? I don't.
I guess sometimes she tells about her, but yeah, like,
Yeah. A little child can preach even if they don't have a lot of knowledge. She couldn't quote verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Brahma Samhita, but she knew Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And she wanted to tell people, you should know about this. You should know. I'm going to tell you something that you should know. You don't know it. It's the most important thing to know. So you can preach without much knowledge, but with faith. But as devotees, part of our responsibility is to become somewhat learned, at least. Some become much more than others, but all devotees are responsible to study Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, to a good extent and become learned in the philosophy. And then we can tell people, this is the material world. You're afraid of the material world, you're suffering, you're lamenting because you identify with the body. You don't know that the body is, that you're separate from the body. That's why you're suffering. That's why you're lamenting. And so we are expected to be able to preach in an intelligent way. And so the lamentation is key. Prabhupada said many, many, many times, he said, I just want you to be happy. Something interesting. I shouldn't do that. But anyway, you should, Prabhupada is the point of Krishna. Krishna wants us to be happy, And that's why he comes as Krishna, or comes as Lord Varaha, Lord Nrsingadev. Lord Nrsingadev wanted Prahlad to be happy or free from the distress that his father was causing him. And Lord Chaitanya, the whole purpose of Lord Chaitanya's manifestation is to Achandale Denam Nitaya Doyamoy. Lord Chaitanya came to give the holy name to everyone, to the Chandalas and to the Brahmins, without any distinction of country, class, creed. There's no distinction. Lord Chaitanya specific purpose is to give. There's a song about Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nityananda that you come to save the most fallen, so my claim is first. Is Lochanda?
Narottam Das.
What?
Narottam.
Das. You've come to save the most fallen. Of course, Narottam Das Thakur is not the most fallen, but he thinks he's presenting himself like that, and the pure devotees think of themselves like that. They're not the most fallen. And anyway, so Lord Chaitanya did come to give to Krishna consciousness to everyone, no matter who, and saving the fallen soul. But because we're not happy, we can't be happy without him, and we will always be in lamentation. Nasochati nakangshati. We don't hanker and we don't lament. Everyone in the material world is hankering. Oh, if I could only get this good job and make a lot of money, if I could only get this beautiful girl as my wife, if I could only have a house on the ocean, on the beach, if I could only have a body like this famous athlete or that beautiful movie star. Oh, if I could only have this, if I could only do that. Everyone is always hankering, and also everyone is always lamenting. Whether you get the thing you want or not, sometimes you get it. Most of the time in the material world, you don't get what you want. Especially in Kali Yuga, mostly you don't get what you want. And even if you do get it, you will lose it. The beautiful man or beautiful girl will lose their beauty in a few years, or lose their bodily strength, or the rich person will lose his money. Maybe not in this life, but he'll definitely lose his money at the time of death. And in his next life, he'll be, there's one story Prabhupada tells about a cobbler, and he made money making shoes for people, and he got pretty, not rich, but he got pretty well off, and maybe rich, but then he left his body, and his next life he was a beggar. He went to the house where his sons and daughters lived after he died, and to beg, and they beat him with shoes and drove him away. All glorious to Srila Prabhupada.
प्रभुपाद की नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णकृष्णाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी